Hey, this is Steve with a movie review of Julie and Julia. You can visit my screenwriting blog at myothercareer.wordpress.com. I checked out Julie and Julia last night with my wife and a couple of friends, and it's a good movie. It's a good movie, but it's a movie that suffers from about being 20 to 25 minutes too long. Julie and Julia was directed by Nora Ephron, so I don't have to say a whole lot more about that. She's, a great director. And did a fine job on this film. It was written by both Nora Ephron and Julie Powell, who is actually one of the main characters in the film. And the main actors and actresses was Meryl Streep, Stanley Tucci, Amy Adams, and Chris Messina. Julie and Julia is a good film. It is a good film, but it is not a great film. And it could have been a great film if they just had trimmed it up a little bit. I don't know how they would have done that because of the nature of how they decided to structure the film. But the parts that seemed to drag on the most were the ones that did not involve Julia Child, which is a downer considering the movie is really about Julie Powell. The overall narrative of the film is Julie Powell is an unhappy cubicle worker in 2002 that works for an agency that takes complaints about the Ground Zero operations in New York City. So you can imagine her phone calls consist of mainly people crying, upset, being screwed over by health insurance claims, they don't like the monument, blah, 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 blah. Very sympathetic. She also finds that all of her friends, as she's about to turn 30, are drastically more successful than her. And as somebody who just turned 30, well, is about to turn 31 in October, I can relate to a lot of that. I've built a good life for myself, but I know a lot of friends who aren't as intelligent as I am, who kind of lucked into a lot better jobs, a lot better careers, and, whatever. But I'm not as unhappy as she was. I'm very happy with my life. So, to give herself some sort of goal, because she decides, with the aid of her husband, to really look at what she enjoys doing. She enjoys cooking. And so as a project, she decides to take the, I think, Mastering the Art of French Cooking, I think that's the title of the book, written by Julie Child, and do all of the recipes in a year, and blog about it. Each night she'd post up, blah, 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 blah. And her goal is to get to the end, to get to all the recipes at the end of the book. Interspersed with her journey through that, we learn about Julia Child. And an episode that occurs in Julie Powell's life is similar to something that occurred in Julia Child's life. And you learn about Julia Child and her life and her husband's life and why they were in Europe and how she learned to cook French food and everything about her. And the more you learned about her, the more you just wanted to watch Julia Child. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that she is just so significant in American pop culture. Anybody who's over 20 really knows who she is. If they haven't seen her, they know her voice and seen people doing imitations of her. And she's just led just such a fascinating life. I mean, she worked in the OSS, which is the Office of Strategic Services in World War II. I believe started as a secretary, ended up working on policy and doing some really interesting stuff during the war. Met her husband there, who then went on to work in the Foreign Service over in Europe, and that's where they were stationed in Paris, and where she learned, she took a cooking class at Le Cordon Bleu, cooking school there, and learned how to cook French food. And the segments about her and her husband living in Europe were just fascinating. It was just so much fun to learn about her character and all the trouble she had getting her book published and everything about her, that when you got away from her back to Julie Powell, you just wanted to get through it. And that took away from the film a little bit. I don't know what they could have done to change that. Nora Ephron is extremely talented, and I would just guess that they did what they thought was going to work. And when it came out, and it just, probably because Meryl Streep was playing Julia Child, there wasn't anything they can do. I don't think they set out and realized when they started writing that Julia Child's character was just going to be so much more interesting. But what are you going to do? Like I said, it's not a bad movie. It's a good movie. I would say rent it or go to a matinee. matinee. I'm sure some people enjoyed it more than I did. The acting was top-notch. Everybody nailed it. I thought all the characters were very realistic. They didn't fall into any romantic comedy type of character flaws and stereotypes. Julie Powell's character is very nervous about. I thought she may turn into the whiny, normal romantic comedy female lead that you want to smack around as much as you want her to get the guy. They avoided all of that, which was really refreshing, and probably what helped make it easier to sit through the 2 hours. The movie runs 2 hours and 3 minutes. It should have been probably about 100 minutes. But you're able to get through it because the characters are not annoying. Ugh, my puppy's just chewing. At any rate, it's a good film. I wouldn't discourage you from checking it out. The directing's solid. The scenes where they're living in Europe are great. It's just lopsided towards Julia Child's character as opposed to Julie Powell's character. So take that for what you will. I'm going to catch District 9 today at a matinee, and I'm really looking forward to that. So I'll come up with a review of that once I get done. Hopefully I'm a little more excited than I appear coming from Julia. But you know, I'm a guy, and you know, this movie, Julia was geared more towards women. But it's not that it's a chick. It's definitely not a chick flick. I wouldn't say it's a chick flick because it deals. Anybody who's married or in an established relationship will understand a lot of what goes on in that book, because it is not your stereotypical girl meets guy, girl loses guy, girl wants guy back. They're married, they're happy. You don't deal with any of that drivel that's been done a million times to death. So it's very refreshing, which is why I wouldn't say it doesn't fall into the chick flick category. So I'll give it 1.5 thumbs up, just because it was too long. I think if it was probably about 20 minutes shorter, I would be a lot more positive on it than I am. But like I said, that's not to say it's a bad movie. It's a good movie. It's just not a great movie because it runs just a little too long, and it's a little lopsided towards one of the two characters. But what are you going to do about that? So, all right, this is Steve signing off. Check out my screenwriting blog at www.myothercareer.wordpress.com. And until then, keep writing. That was real cheesy. I don't know why I did that.